In 2014, I quit my job as a physio. I was working as a physio for about 4 years or whatever. But after I discovered God was real and it kind of changed my life, I realized that, yeah, there was something else that I wanted to do with my life. I wasn't really sure what it was yet, but I just knew it wasn't that. And so I resigned. And then as part of resigning from my job, I needed to hand my phone back. And so I was just sitting at home one day, and I brought in, I was living in a little apartment, and I brought in the mail. And there was a little Australia Post catalogue, and it had a big picture of a Vespa on the front of it. And it said, enter a competition to win a Vespa. And it caught my attention because I always loved like little scooters and Vespas. And I thought, oh, that's awesome. And then I noticed to enter the competition, you had to buy a mobile phone through Australia Post. And I thought, that's a coincidence. Like, I need a new phone because I'm handing my phone back because I'm quitting my job. And I just felt this faith that God wants to bless me with a Vespa, as crazy as that sounds. And I just got really excited, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. There was a few other things as well, like I had just felt led to sell my car, and I did that even though it didn't really make sense. Because I was like, how am I going to get around? And so I was like, oh, this just makes sense then. God's going to give me a Vespa. I'll be able to use that to get around. And yeah, and so I just believed it. And I went to the post office to buy a phone and enter the competition. And I remember the lady was like, oh, so you want a Vespa? I was like, yeah, I'll enter the competition. She's like, oh, why don't you just buy one if you want one? I'm like, what for? I'm going to win one. And she just starts laughing, and she's like, yeah, okay, no worries. Make sure you come past when you win it. And then I remember after I entered the competition, I got home and I looked at the receipt, and the competition, it was going to be drawn in about 2 months' time. And I remembered the date that the competition was I noted it down. And so anyway, during those 2 months, I was telling people that, oh yeah, I believe I'm going to win this Vespa. I believe God wants me to have it. There was one time where I went to Juice Ex Machina. It's a motorbike shop, Deus Juice, I don't know how you pronounce it. And I just went there for a burger because they got a cafe next to the motorbike shop, and they've got, apparel, helmets, clothing, and all that sort of stuff. And there was this helmet that I saw there that I really liked. I was like, oh, that would go nice with my Vespa. And even though I didn't have it yet, obviously. So I just went over and I was browsing, I was looking at the helmets. And then the sales attendant comes over and she's like, oh, do you want to try it on? And I was like, sure, why not? So I try it on, and she's like, oh, it's a bit big for you. She's like, I'll go check if we've got a smaller size, but I think we're all sold out. I was like, yeah, no worries, no pressure. I'm just browsing. And so she goes into the back to have a look. And then as I'm sitting there looking at these helmets, I heard God's voice inside me say, if you believe you're going to win the Vespa, why don't you buy the helmet? And I was like, it just came out of nowhere, and it shocked me, like, that voice. I was like, whoa, like, and my instant reaction was, that's crazy, I can't do that. But I was wrestling with it because it really felt like God's voice. I had heard God's voice maybe once or twice by this point after I had discovered His real. And so I knew that voice, and I was like, oof, and it challenged me. But at the same time, it excited me, but it challenged me. And I was like, oh, and I said, all right. I said, God, if she comes back and they have a helmet in my size, then fine, I'll buy it. Anyway, she comes out of the back room. She's like, oh, I found it. She goes, we got one left. And she goes, because it's the last one, I'll give you a discount as well. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's do it. And at this stage, it was a bit of money for me as well at that stage, to just buy a helmet for a bike that I didn't have. But I was like, yep, cool. So we go up to the register, paying for it, and she's like, so what kind of bike do you ride? And I'm like, oh, I've actually entered a competition to win one, to win a Vespa. You should have seen the look on her face. She's like, oh, okay, like, cool. And she's like, do you win competitions often? I'm like, no, I've never won one before. I don't even think I've entered one before. And she's like, oh, and she just, I start laughing, she starts laughing, and she's like, well, all the best, good luck. I'm like, yeah, thanks. So I head home. I'm like, oh man, this is crazy. But at the same time, I was on a high because I was like, that was God's voice. I've heard God's voice before. I was just excited. And I got home and I got a little text down on the back of my helmet. I wrote, the just shall live by faith, just in little writing. And anyway, another month or so passed, and then it got to the time where the competition was being drawn. And I remember I had the exact date, because it said the date it was going to get drawn, and also the location as well. So it was going to be drawn in Melbourne in Victoria. I was living in Sydney at the time, and that was the first day I started feeling nervous. I started feeling like, oh my goodness, I've told so many people I believe I'm going to win this Vespa. It was the first day I started to feel nervous. And I think I even had the time of the draw, I can't remember. But I was just sitting on my couch, just like going all over the different scenarios. If I don't win, what am I going to tell everyone? How am I going to process this? And I couldn't deal with the stress. I was like, you know what, stuff it. Like, I'm just going to tell people I believe God wanted me to win it, but if I don't, whatever. Like, I'm not going to stress about it. And so I was like, I just need to get out of the house. I need to go to the gym. So I started packing my gym gear. I'm like, I need to get my mind off this, because I was just getting too worked up. And then anyway, as I'm packing my stuff, my phone starts ringing, and I go and look at my phone, and it had 03 as the number. And I knew that 03 at the start of the phone number is Melbourne, Victoria. And I was like, hang on, the competition's in Melbourne, being drawn in Melbourne. So I answered the phone, and I'm like, hello? And she's like, oh, hi, Peter. She's like, my name's so-and-so. She goes, I'm calling from Australia Post. She's like, I've got some good news on this Monday morning. She's like, you recently entered a competition to win a Vespa, and congratulations, you won. And I just played it cool. I was like, oh, wow, that's great news. Like, wow, that's awesome. She's like, yeah, you know, I'll just collect all your details. I'll pass them over to the Vespa dealer, and then, you know, they'll be in touch to organize delivery. I was like, wow, that's awesome, you know, thank you. She's like, yeah, you know, congratulations again, and see you later. I get off the phone, and I'm just like, yeah. I'm just like bouncing off the walls in my apartment. I'm like, yeah. I was just over the moon. Not only because, like, a Vespa's awesome, right? Don't get me wrong, but it was way more than just receiving a Vespa. It was like, I couldn't believe that. I believed it was God. I heard his voice. I believed he wanted to give it to me, and then it happened. Like, it was just crazy. And you know, I started telling everyone, you know, that I won, and like some people were in disbelief, shock, like they couldn't believe it. They were like, I was so sure you weren't going to win that thing. But yeah, I won, and you know, a few weeks later, or whenever it was, the dealer called me. I went and picked it up. As you can see in the photo from the thumbnail, that was the day I picked it up. And yeah, I actually ended up giving that Vespa away. I felt, I had it for a few months. And then there was someone that I felt God was trying to reach, that wanted to show he was real, and then it just felt right to give the Vespa to that person. So I gave it to him as a gift. I received it as a gift from God, and then I gave it as a gift to someone else. But it was awesome. It was such an amazing amazing time. And it's one of the things I've noticed with God, like when you're believing, there's a few things that have happened in my life that I'll share on future videos eventually as well, where, you know, I heard from God. I believed I heard from God with what he was saying was going to happen in a certain area or situation or something in my life, and I believed it, but then my faith was put to the test in one way or another along that journey of believing to see it to happen, and then it did come to pass. And so I've just noticed that, like, when you believe something about God, like, there'll always be opportunities to put that faith to test. And I think it does something in the spiritual realm as well, to actually make things manifest in the natural realm, when your faith is put to the test and you continue to believe. You know, and a Vespa is just a small example, right? It's there's way bigger, more important things than that, but I still cherish that testimony, that story. It was just such an amazing, you know, period of my life. And then the other thing is, it's funny since then, like, so some people have even asked me, oh, you know, was it because you just had so much faith and you didn't doubt? Is that how you won it? It's strange, because I don't feel like that about that experience. Like, to me, when I remember how it all happened, I felt like God was showing me he wanted me to have it, and all I did was partner with God. I just was like, he showed me it in that magazine, and I believed God was showing me he wanted me to have it, and I just believed it. I was just like, wow, God wants to give me this. And then I just didn't doubt. It wasn't like I was sitting there thinking, You know, what do I really want? Oh, I want this. All right, I'm going to believe God to give me this. Now, look, I'm not saying it can't work that way. I'm sure people have received things. Jesus did say, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. He said that, right? I'm sure it could still work that way too. But with this particular story and how it happened, I just genuinely felt like God was showing me, hey, I want to give you this. And then I just believed it and I didn't doubt it. Until the final day when the competition was being drawn and I started to have fear, but you know, I just sort of surrendered that to God. So yeah, I just want to encourage you, like, if there's stuff that's written in the Bible that belongs to you, whether it's, you know, your healing, whether it's being provided for, a home, a car, whatever you need, even fun things, right? Like, God doesn't want to just meet our needs. He wants to meet our wants as well. Like think about if you're a parent, you don't only just want to provide, you know, a roof over their heads and food for your children, and that's it, just meet all their basic needs and that's it. You want them to have fun as well. Like, you know, if it's within your means, you want to, you know, I'm not saying to spoil them, but you don't want to just meet their needs. You want to be able to, it brings you joy to see them have joy. And God's the same with us. He doesn't want to just meet our needs. He wants to bless us with more than enough, so that we have more than enough to share with others, so that we can enjoy life together with him. It's not about seeking after material possessions or seeking after experience or whatever. It's like, it's just understanding that father-son relationship we have with God. So yeah, I hope that story encourages you. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys on the next one.